Best hour of their day is back. Fern and I talking about something very unique and very, I would say it's rarely done, might be the best way to talk about it. I'm going to ask you a lot about it, Fern, because you do this at your box, and it's when we kind of say what it is, it's going to be scary, challenging, and maybe come off as a little dumb. But let's call it what it is. What do you refer to it as at CrossFit Rife?
Well, to be super clear, we don't do this all the time. We do it once a year, and it's more of an experiment than anything. And Todd, I talked about it a little bit on the podcast with Todd when we talked about what is RX. So if you haven't listened to that episode, go back and listen to that episode with Todd and I. But we change what it means to do a workout as prescribed.
So that's an interesting point, and I think if you go back to 2007, there's been so many experimentations, and there was a period of time, at least for me at Albany CrossFit, where we ran, I believe it was coming out of Toronto. It was this programming, but basically the workouts were programmed around the percentage of your 1 rep max. So, for example, Fran, 2159 thrusters and pull-ups, you would use 50% of your best thruster. And the goal was, hey, if everyone's using 50% of their best, we're getting a very similar stimulus. And if you look back to the 2001, 2002 era of CrossFit, I think really that's how Coach Glassman defined many of the RX weights back in the day.
I dig it, and we've played around with it. The problem is the practical execution of that in the affiliate every day, right? So I don't actually disagree with using percentage of absolute strength figures. I think it's great. The problem is, I mean, if we were really to canvas the athletes in every affiliate and figure out what percentages of them had an accurate and relevant 1 RM, it would be relatively low. Like we might do a 1 RM twice a year at CrossFit Rife, because I just don't find a ton of value of hitting those really high percentages. Like I prefer to stick in everything between 5s to 2s. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and I think that's a good idea. And I think, 1 RMs, you get the newer people that probably don't actually hit their 1 RM because their form isn't solid enough and they're not, confident under a barbell. You get the more experienced people who could just be tired, fatigued, and they're not going to hit it. So yeah, I agree with that. But what I was referring to in 2001, 2002, I think even if you go back to February 10th, 2001, Fast and Heavy, the workout called for, choose a heavy dumbbell. And a lot of the workouts back in the day were, choose a heavy this or choose a heavy that. And really there was some data being absorbed, and it was, hey, well, we find the average person's using 95 pounds for thrusters or 135 for clean and jerk. So this brings us to the topic. You refer to it as the No RX month.
No, it's actually RX month, right? So it's not No RX month. We just call it RX month. And we call it that because we give everybody the opportunity to, and this is not about like getting trophies, right? So I don't want it to be confused with that, but we do give everybody the opportunity to go RX, because as we've talked about in the past, the goal of any given workout is to hit the intended stimulus, like whether it's rounds or reps or whether it's time or whether it's, heavy. That's the goal, not necessarily a specific, like, quite frankly, arbitrary weight on a barbell, so that's the goal, right? So we give everybody the opportunity to check that box, and it's kind of based on how well they know themselves with a little bit of our guidance. But it's been really fun. We got a lot. The first year we did it, we got a lot of pushback because it's different. Nobody likes anything different. And the second year we did it, and every year we've done it since then. I think this is our 3rd year doing it. We got a lot of good feedback on it. People really dig it. It's fun. It requires a little bit of critical thinking on the athlete's part.
Which type of athlete gives you the most pushback?
The same type of athlete that there's just that athlete. Everybody knows who it is the one that always gives you issues, who always pushes back about, wanting to do heavier weight or do more reps or do a more complex movement, do muscle ups when they don't have muscle ups, like those folks. So Everybody, you already know who it is in your gym. I will tell you that.
Gotcha. Now, did you have a period of time at CrossFit Rife where you have certain members that wanted to go above and beyond RX? I'm thinking like that 2009, 2010 era of CrossFit.
Maybe, but like we've for us, it's, I mean, like occasionally we have like maybe ones or twosies over the years, and I can't remember who they would be. Have those people that, I'm going to do Fran with the weight vest on because it's harder that way. But largely no, because we've largely always discouraged that behavior.
Yeah, there was a period of time at Albany CrossFit where everybody just wanted to go heavier. And, I think we've kind of talked about it in past episodes. Typically, when someone wants to go heavier, it's a way of making it easier.
Yeah, I mean, Pat Sherwood said this to me years ago, and if you watch people train long enough, there's a very distinct difference between somebody who puts the bar down because they want to versus somebody who puts the bar down because they physically have to. One is a psychological breakdown, the other one is a physical breakdown. And, obviously intensity is relative to both physical and psychological tolerances, but really from a training standpoint, I would much prefer to butt up against your psychological tolerances than your physical tolerances, because we know what's going to happen if we are constantly jumping over that threshold of physical tolerance, which is there's going to be breakdown to some varying degree of technique. And depending on what we're doing, that's less than desirable.
But with that being said, we need to get people to understand and have the ability to push beyond just their desire to put the bar down. And if, we all understand what Fern is saying, I kind of look at it as the people that were doing Fran and they immediately say, hey, I'm going to go 777. That might be one example. Or just the people that put the barbell down on even numbers versus, getting to 17. What are some of your methods for helping people burst through that?
I think some of that is how you brief the workout. So I think you can, if you brief the workout that I want the reps on these rounds unbroken. So for instance, yesterday we did, was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday we did a workout that was 10 down to 1 power clean, and then skier calories in between each round. So 55 total power cleans. I think the kind of RX plus weight was 165. RX weight was 135 and 95. And then the calories was fixed. I think it was 5 to 7 calories. But when I briefed that workout, I told everybody, you should be able to do 10 reps unbroken at whatever weight you choose. Now, if you choose to do quick singles, that's a strategic decision on your part, but it shouldn't be because you have to do singles. So if you just choose not to because you want to save your grip, then cool, that's your strategy. But as soon as that barbell hits the ground, like, I want you picking it up if that's the case. So I think a lot of it is how you brief it, and then the other piece of that is like what you're doing throughout the warm up. If you're doing test rounds to validate or invalidate that decision they're about to make.
Well, so let's talk about it. That leads into the RX month, if you will. A lot of this, we refer to it quite often, it happens at the whiteboard. Go check out our whiteboard brief episode. But what are some of the ways you get your athletes to hit the, quote unquote RX during this RX month?
So there is a learning curve involved there. And so for anybody who's struggling to wrap your brain around like what this means is, so rather than giving fixed weights, we would potentially give no weights, or we would give weight ranges. So we wouldn't give like 135, 95. We would say anything between 75 pounds to 135 is the weight. And then I would describe what should happen with that weight, whether it's unbroken or max 2 sets to get to whatever the number is. So that's one piece of it we would do. So we give either no or weight ranges, and then we would give rep ranges as well. So we might give rep ranges as high as 30, like a rep range of 30 reps, where any number within that range of 30 is available to you, as long as we can hit the intended stimulus. So it does two things: is it kind of gets them the opportunity to experiment a little bit, but it also kind of gets people off of this notion that like there's some magic behind numbers. There's really not. You know, like if we made a workout that was all 17 reps, like, okay, like it's probably effective. The reason we have clean rep schemes in CrossFit like 21-15-9 or 50-40-30-20-10 is because it's not an intelligence test. Like I don't want you having to use an abacus in the middle of the workout to figure out what your next rep or round should be. So I want it to be simple in that respect. So, but that doesn't mean that that's always the way that it should work.
So when you're briefing it, what are some of the things that you might say? And you know, this could be redundant if you listen to our whiteboard brief episode, but it's also just a good recap and a good refresher. Let's talk about it. Do you remember any specific workouts that you've had during that RX month that we can dive into?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but it doesn't matter. So what I've kind of recently gravitated towards when I brief a workout is I will brief, you know, like first I'll say we're either time or rounds. So let's just make something up. Let's just say yesterday, let's say it was 12 minutes of the power cleans and ski erg. So that's how I would brief it. Guys, 12 minutes, we're going to power clean, we're going to ski erg. I want you to be done in something between 8 to 12 minutes. So I've left out a lot of the more specific stuff and I've highlighted or emphasized what's important, which is these are the two movements involved. This is how long I want it to take.
And let's dive into that. You know, so someone's listening to this and they're trying to lead a more effective whiteboard brief. There's probably kind of a pyramid of broad to specific, and that is broad. Like, hey, here's the workout. It's not an AMRAP. First thing we're going to tell people is, here's the parameter. I need you finishing somewhere here. If you're done too early, you probably went too easy. If you're done, you know, beyond 12 minutes, you bit off more than you can chew. So first things first, here's our kind of time frame. Now what?
So then I'll come back and I'll talk about potentially so in the whiteboard brief, there's kind of three things you want to check. It's like, what's the workout? What's the stimulus? What are my scaling options? Like in that order, check those three boxes. It's a fair bet that we've given a fairly effective whiteboard brief. So what's the workout? Here it is. It's 12 minutes of power clean and ski erg. What's the stimulus? I want you done in 8 to 12 minutes. And then I go through scaling options. These are the rep ranges that you can choose. These are the weight ranges that you can choose. Here's kind of what they should look and feel like. With that set of 10, whatever weight you choose should get you out of there in 10 sets, max 2, you know, to get there. On the ski erg, I want you done in 20 to 30 seconds. 30 seconds is as far right as I'd like to go. And then during the workout, I'm going to test both of those things to make sure that that's what they've dialed up. But at no point have I really put any emphasis whatsoever on a specific number or a specific load.
Yeah, and that's, you know, and really when you're looking at it, and if we break it down even further, like Fern said, you have two movements, and really for this particular workout, the big sets are that set of 10. So we need to kind of have that parameter there of, hey, you should, like Fern said earlier, and I like that explanation a lot. I tell people this, you should be able to go unbroken. Mid-workout, if you put it down once, totally acceptable, because we realize going unbroken, you know, could skyrocket your heart rate. So if you need to rest, sure. And then for this one, hey, the ski erg is going to take you this long. So now we have these kind of two rules. I like that you have that range of weights. And of course, you'll probably always have some outliers, some newer athletes or some really strong athletes. You know, in this workout, like you said, it's probably 75 to maybe 155. You know your athletes. Everyone should fit in there.
Yeah.
And that there's probably no harm in helping some of the less familiar athletes dictate what weights they should use.
Yeah, there's definitely some athletes that you're going to spoon feed and you're going to give them the answer. You're going to do X, Y, and Z. That's it. Like you don't get to decide here. I'm in charge of that. For my more experienced athletes, that becomes a little bit more of a discussion. You know, hey, what should I do? Well, you always put 75 on the bar, so let's go 80 to 85. Let's make a slight adjustment there, but I still want you to go unbroken, so you're gonna have to push a little bit harder.
And now, I refer to it as a WOD buildup. I like to do this for a few reasons. The WOD buildup, allows me to kind of get eyeballs on everybody and make sure they're not doing too much or too little, but also look at the logistics. You know, is that person power cleaning over in the corner? You know, is there a clear path to the ski ergs, all that stuff. what are some of the tests you might run, and meaning, do we need to see people do 10 power cleans to prove they can do 10 power cleans, or ski erg 7 calories? I think certain things are okay to run at the full test of the workout. So what might you do on that to look at the 10?
For the ski erg, I would test that. I would have everybody test it during the warm up. Once we've gone through a progression on how to ski erg, we've talked about kind of what the pacing we're looking for. I'm going to have everybody test it. I'm just going to tell everybody whatever calorie count you think you're going to use for the workout. I want to test it right now. I want you to take note of how long it takes. If it takes 30 seconds right now and we're fresh, let's bump it down a little bit. But if we're in that 20-second range, which is about how long it should take, then we're good. For the barbell, I'm probably not going to make everybody do 10 unbroken power cleans. I'm probably going to make them do 5 to 6. I'm going to know. Like you'll know if they can make it to 10 without, making their heart explode. And then you can have that discussion there.
Yeah, and I think that's a good example. I think for workouts that have monostructural movements, especially the row or the bike these days, whether it's a short burst like that, I agree with Fern. No reason everyone can't do a 30-second burst, recover for a minute or two. You'll always have the people that don't want to do it, but I personally feel better when I go hard for a minute or two and then have a couple minutes to recover. But even if it were a longer domain, 1K row or a 2K, I'll just let people row hard for 30 seconds, and you should be good enough as a coach and with your coach's eye to establish what that will look like in the middle of a workout.
Well, I mean, there's tips and tricks there. For instance, I could have them row a 250 and just kind of do some math, and kind of watch everybody. Is rowing a 2-minute 500-meter split sustainable for this athlete? If the answer is pretty confidently yes, then we can just take that time, multiply it by 4, and give them a target time and just say, listen, you need to stay within 2 to 3 seconds of 2-minute split. That's going to put you at whatever this time is going to be for 1,000 meters. That's going to put you, at 8 minutes or sorry, not 8 minutes, but it's going to put you at that split time that we want to finish the total distance there for that. So, which would put you at 4 minutes. Sorry for that.
And, for those listening, whether you're a coach, a boxer, or just an athlete, these are all interesting points, right? An athlete, hey, next time you're at the whiteboard, listen to your coach, see if you can scale appropriately. If you're a coach, this should help your whiteboard brief. And if you're a boxer, maybe this is something you want to try. Now, you do it for a month, but maybe we encourage people to start for a week.
Yeah. So there are some pitfalls to this. Number one, I do think you should have a pretty firm grasp of programming, because you are going to have to, where you can drop the ball here, because it's all based on the stimulus. So if you give the wrong stimulus for a workout that nobody can hit based on what you've designed, that makes me an idiot. And I'm going to really lose some trust there with the athletes. So test them out. Like this might be one of those months where you have to test the vast majority of workouts so that you can brief it appropriately and give an appropriate stimulus for the workout. That's like the biggest pitfall that I see if you're going to do this, is like not getting that correct, because that just throws the whole thing off. Then nobody gets to hit the RX button. And the idea is for people to get it. And I also tell people, I'm like, I want you to hit the mark 70% of the time. You should miss 30% of the time because you try to go a little bit faster, or you decide to go maybe a little bit heavier. And let's learn something. Let's learn that, oh, maybe that weight is manageable for me at this pace, or maybe I can do a little bit more volume of a more high skilled gymnastics movement, or handstand push-ups, or muscle ups, or something of that nature. So the big thing is, the coach is like, you need to be right when you provide that stimulus, because if you're not, you're going to run into some problems, and you're going to get a significant pushback on that.
And I think that's an important lesson to discuss. I think athletes are listening to this, and they will know who they are. They're the ones that look at a workout and immediately figure out where they're going to break, and, how they're going to split this movement up. And I would encourage you, if you're listening, maybe not every day, but once a week, twice a week, you need to just go all out from the beginning and see what happens. And that was a big lesson I learned. For so long, it was, all right, I split. And you hear it every year around the Open. how are you going to game plan this? And I always tell people, if you're game planning, it's really just because you're not good enough. You know,
I mean, there's a time and a place for it. I don't know that that kind of all out intensity is sustainable every single day, but I do think you need to dip your toe in that water because that's, that's where a lot of that adaptation happens, both physically and between the years. So, but again, it's not sustainable. It's like it's that old adage of, hey, it's not game day every day. Some days are just training.
yeah. And I would encourage people, whether it's a Fran, let's say, we continue to use Fran, but if 21 thrusters are tough and it's going to beat you up, do it anyway and see. There are times you learn, hey, wow, I can hang on and pick the bar back up on round 2, or that demolished me and I, rested 3 minutes before my set of pull-ups. But I used to have this argument with the members of my box. They were like, no, dropping the bar is just as fast as touch and go. And I'm like, no, false. And there's a reason if you look back on workouts like double grace, remember double grace,
Mhm.
Froning hangs onto the bar at the end because it's faster.
Yeah.
And then we timed. I was like, well, let's do 10 dropping and then we'll rest and we'll go 10 touch and go. And it was significantly faster. And I was
I mean,
like,
Frazier did it this year and on the final workout and the crowd went ape shit when he was doing those snatches at the end. He like did a set of 5 and everybody, the arena like lost their mind because he just pulled away in those 5 reps. Everybody else was doing singles.
yeah. And again, that's kind of the example I use, like Frazier's and the Tias of the world. Obviously they do game plan when they see a workout, but oftentimes like that workout where they, what Castro called the standard, it's just like, hey, I'm going to hang on to this bar as long as I possibly can. And, they're trying to win. So every so often you need to do that. Every so often you need to game plan. The ultimate goal is intensity. And for most people, that's finishing the workout faster. So whatever allows you to do that is more intense. And sometimes it's splitting up appropriately and sometimes it's going unbroken.
And that's up to you as a coach based on your knowledge of the workout, when and when not to recommend that. If it's a 20-minute AMRAP, probably not a good idea. If it's a shorter time domain, then it's probably okay to tell people, let's go full ham sandwich here and just see what happens. Like that's not inappropriate, but as the time domain moves to the right, we know that intensity will naturally drop off. So those kind of full out 100%, completely phosphocreatine pathway type efforts is not going to work. Like you're going to fall apart. So don't do that.
Yeah, but yeah, I like that analogy. And it's, we recently had Greg Hammond from Concept 2, and it kind of reminded me of that. Like, it's just the damper, right? The longer you're going, drop that damper down a little bit. You're doing a 20-minute AMRAP, maybe you don't hang onto the bar to failure, but you're doing a 3. The nice thing about that short one is even if you're exhausted, you don't have a whole lot left.
Exactly.
So you talked a little bit about pitfalls. What are some of the biggest successes and wins you've had from doing this RX month?
I think A is just kind of reframing like what's important with regard to RX, which is, really getting people to understand that the stimulus is what is important because that is what we're chasing. And then the other big win I think is, allowing people to experiment and really play around with some things that they probably wouldn't normally play around with, like whether it's rep ranges or movements. The month is kind of like, I wouldn't describe it as like fast and loose, but like I think the more frequently we do it, the more people get hyped about it because they get some creativity with regard to the workouts and they start to think about it a little bit more, and it's much less of this mindless lemming who walks in the gym and just does what they're told. Because I do want them to think critically. I want smart athletes, not just athletes that are here just kind of walking around like zombies.
Well, yeah, and oftentimes, and I think, coaches fall into this trap. It's like, hey, scaling is load. Well, yeah, that's important, but scaling could also be the reps of gymnastic movements, right? And that goes back to what I was saying earlier. A lot of times we did that percentage work, but also the gymnastics was a percentage. Hey, you probably shouldn't be doing 21 pull-ups when your max effort set is 6.
Yeah, I mean, scaling is any of the variables within the power equation. So force, distance, or time. So load, reps, or time are all scaling options because those all have a mathematical effect on my power output, which is in turn intensity. So, think of scaling in all three of those facets. You might not always need to scale the weight. Maybe it's appropriate to leave the weight heavy and scale the volume a little bit. That's also appropriate.
And other things I've done is, hey, sure, we're probably not for the workout we've been discussing because it's a little long, but say you do Fran 21, 15, 9, get it done early in the class, get warmed up and maybe start Fran at 20 minutes in. So now at 30, everybody's done. And then maybe at 40 or 45, you challenge people to do it again, but really light and feel the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many ways to do that. And I think the RX month is, for us, it's a learning month. It's an experimentation month. It's an opportunity to find new data points so that we can take that and move it forward in our training and make better, objective, intelligent decisions about what the weight should be, what kind of volume in a complex movement we should be using, or how many reps we should be doing. Like, do you fall apart at 30 pull-ups or do you fall apart at 50 pull-ups? It's important to find that out.
Yeah, and whether you choose to go a full month, a week, or just kind of sprinkle in some RX days here and there, I think there's a lot to learn about it. You'll improve your whiteboard brief. You'll improve your members' ability to understand and break down workouts. And ultimately, it's just going to be a good challenge for you and the entire affiliate.
And it's funny because the questions you get at the whiteboard, the answer is large. You're just going to be saying yes. What about this? Yes, if it puts you in this time frame or rep range. What about this? Yes, if it puts you in this time frame or rep range. What about this? Yeah. The answer is largely yes, if it puts you here. So, and as we tell everybody, I don't care what you do. If you end up in that, then the answer is yes. I don't care. I don't care how you scale it. I don't care anything. All of that is yes.
And I'm sure you have a lot of people leaving feeling really proud and accomplished because, the people that never get to hit that RX button during the rest of the year get to hit it during this time.
Yeah, and the long tail of that is people buy in to your coaching and your guidance moving forward.
Yeah, and you probably get a few people that, like you said, do step out of their comfort zone. The lady that always uses 75 puts 80 on the bar and realizes she can do it. So
Exactly.
Big wins for everybody. We challenge you guys to do it. And if you do it, let us know how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I said, it does take a bit more forethought in the programming arena. And you will probably need to test most of the workouts prior to delivering them so that you can frame it up correctly for the athletes.
And that's something you should be doing anyway. So whether you're doing your own programming, whether you buy another bunch of programming, from some of the big ones out there, spoiler alert, best hour of their day programming coming very soon. And you should be testing those workouts and just digging into them and trying to figure out what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. So I just think it's really fun. It's variety, it's a good way to kind of to switch things up in the affiliate.
All right, Fern. Well, there's the RX month. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Just something to think about. You don't have to do it, but whether you do or don't do it, it's something you should be at least addressing at the whiteboard. And hopefully this helps you brief better, because as we've alluded to numerous times, that whiteboard brief sets the tone for your class.
Yeah. So try it out, guys, and understand that it's not just beneficial for your athletes. It's beneficial for you as a coach to kind of test your knowledge and understanding of training and stimulus. So test it out. Let us know.
Thanks for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. How cool is that? There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, so it becomes super simple. Some of these episodes with Fern or Todd or myself chatting with one another, we've done right within the app itself. Anchor will make it easy to distribute your podcast to all platforms, Spotify, Apple, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make an awesome podcast in one place. All you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today.
Come on, who doesn't have Spotify at this point? And if you were unaware, Spotify now is offering
podcast. That's right. On Spotify, you can listen to all your favorite artists, but also podcasts in one place for free. Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one you're listening to right now, Best Hour of Their Day. On Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcasts so you never miss an episode. Premium users can even download episodes to listen to offline wherever you are, something I always do before I hop on a plane. And you can even easily share what you're listening to with your friends on Instagram and other social media platforms. Here's the deal. If you haven't done so already, be sure to download the Spotify app, search for Best Hour of Their Day on Spotify, or browse some other podcasts if you want. You can find them in your library tab. And also make sure to follow me so you never miss an episode of Best Hour of Their Day. Thanks again for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. Just a reminder, Fern and I have an amazing new show called Dropping In, premiering on our YouTube channel in early 2020. Be sure to head over to the Best Hour of Their Day YouTube channel now. Subscribe so you don't miss any of the episodes. You've probably heard us talking about it, summarizing some of our trip. You can see some highlights up on our Instagram as well at Best Hour of Their Day. But I promise you, you're not going to want to miss out. So subscribe now. Thanks for everything you do. Thanks for letting us be a part of your lives. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Tune in tomorrow for another episode of Best Hour of Their Day.